This is the Blood Red podcast from the Liverpool Echo.
Hello and welcome to the latest Blood Red podcast from the Liverpool Echo. I'm Matt Addison, your host once more with Guy Clark still away, and we have absolutely loads to get into at the end of the week that saw Jordan Henderson lift the Premier League trophy aloft. The Liverpool captain's week got even better today as he picked up the FWA Player of the Season award. And to discuss both of those events, plus Dejan Lovren, Chelsea, Pep Guardiola, Jurgen Klopp's pre-Newcastle press conference, Adam Lallana, the dates for the new Premier League season, and plenty more, I have alongside me for this episode of the podcast our Liverpool correspondent, both home and away, Paul Gorst, plus Echo writers Connor Dunn and Dan Kay. Gentlemen, while I get my breath back, how are we all getting on?
I'm okay, Sam, but the thing I'm worried about is the fact is and plenty more at the end of that list. Not sure we can fit in anymore, to be honest.
Good run into next season, isn't it?
It's going to be a big one, but yeah, I'm all good as well.
Excellent stuff. As I mentioned, absolutely loads to get through here on the Blood Red podcast. But I think it's safe to say there's only one place we can begin. That is with Jordan Henderson lifting that Premier League trophy on Wednesday night. Just 2 days ago, I don't know about you guys, but to me it feels like much longer. Lots has happened since then. But Paul, you were there inside Anfield for that special moment. Very fortunate to be one of the few people inside the stadium. Talk us through what that was like.
It was a privilege. I mean, there was only 500 people there, and before the game, we thought there was going to be even less, didn't we? Because obviously the families were given special dispensation at the 11th hour to kind of allow them in and enjoy it. And it was, I must admit, I was a little bit concerned and a bit worried about it being a little bit of an anticlimax and it being a little bit flat because there was no one there to basically cheer the moment that they lifted the trophy. But full credit to the club because they made it an absolutely fantastic spectacle. But it was spectacular, actually, the way they did it with the stage on the Kop and the firework display from all angles of Anfield, the DJ with the tunes, and then the way they kind of had like the record scratch and then went into You'll Never Walk Alone was really, really huge moment. And it was a privilege and an honour to be there and something to tell the grandkids, to be honest, because if you think years to come when they talk about Liverpool winning the first league title in 30 years and no one was there to see it except for 500 people, which includes the team. So very lucky boy to be there, and I know that, and I was actually thinking that as it was happening. They'd kind of say, how have I ended up bluffing my way to this? But yeah, it was spectacular, and I didn't think it would be as good as it was. So I've got hundreds of videos on my phone, which I'm going to send to myself, and I'll keep them for years and years because it was a great night.
Yeah, a moment to savour. Dan, I believe you were watching on the television from a pub. What did you make of the scenes at the end?
It was a special night, wasn't it? I mean, it was always going to be for supporters, you know, who've been going for a long time. I mean, I'm of an age where I can, you know, just about remember the last title win, and pretty much my entire adolescence and adult life as a supporter as well as a journalist has been, you know, driven by this yearning to see Liverpool lift the title. I think the fact that we've all had a long time to get our heads around the fact that we wouldn't be there. And as Gorsty said, I think the way it was handled, the way it was engineered, the spectacle that they put on, I think they really made the absolute very best out of an unfortunate situation. You know, when Jurgen Klopp said when he was interviewed after the lift, you know, it was, you know, this wasn't the way we wanted it to be, but the situation was out of our hands. And I think there was a real sense of history. I think the presence of Kenny Dalglish there, I think it was great that they got him involved. Obviously, we didn't actually directly hand it to it because of distancing. It was, but he handed the medals over, and the fact that he was obviously the manager of Liverpool the last time we won it, he's such an iconic figure within the history of the club. He kind of provided that link almost between 1990 and 2020. Personally, I was very grateful, you know, particularly to my bosses, that I wasn't working that night. I was working the night that Chelsea beat Man City, and even though, you know, professionally it was an incredible thing to be part of, I was glad I kind of in some ways I've had the best of both worlds with these two events. So, yeah, but I actually had a few mates going, have you not managed to blag yourself a press pass? And in all honesty, I mean, I haven't covered a game in a ground for about 6 years anyway, but I wouldn't have wanted to be honest. I think, you know, the next best thing as far as I was concerned, if I couldn't be in my normal seat in a full house, I would rather be with my mates, being able to have a drink or 9 and enjoy the event for what it was. So it was a special night. I'm still a little bit just about this time yesterday. I was in the right state. I think we're all still coming to terms with it. I think it'll probably be a few. I think it's going to be little things like the starter match of the day next season, the opening credits when you see Jordan Henderson with the trophy week after week. It's going to be a gradual process of it kicking in, and it's a nice slow burner.
Yeah, definitely. As you say, a moment to savour for a long time. And finally, Connor, where were you when the celebrations begun, and how much did it mean to you?
Yeah, I was at Live Blog regular Theo Squire's house, just enjoying it. Yeah, it was obviously massive. I've followed Liverpool since I was 4 years old, much to the non-bemusement of all my family. But yeah, I thought, as the boys have said, spectacular. You couldn't have wished for anything better the way they did it. It was done with all of the messages from fans on the confetti, with the Owen McVeigh laser that came out, the fans putting food banks lasers that came out. I just thought everything they did was right on point, the perfect spectacle. And they had an opportunity. I've said on the podcast before, they had an opportunity to do something spectacular, and they really, really delivered. I thought everything they did that night, I don't think they could have done it any more. Getting the families in at the last moment obviously made that really special for them. Finishing it on the 96 points, obviously another poignant moment. Everything just seemed to come together for that one final, this is incredible. And as Dan said, it's going to take a little while to sink in properly, but really, really special.
Yeah, as near perfect as it could have been without fans inside Anfield, I'm sure we'll all agree on that. But moving on a little bit then, one player who looks to have made his last Liverpool appearance at Anfield now is Dejan Lovren, an unused substitute against Chelsea. He has played his part, though, over the last couple of seasons. And Gorsty, there's a transfer update involving him, and you've got the details.
Yeah, so it looks like he's on his way to Zenit St Petersburg in Russia. They've agreed a fee of around 12 million euros, which comes in just under 11 million. I think it was 10.9. And barring any late hiccup or hitches, he's going to be a Zenit player, and Liverpool are going to pocket a little bit of money, and they're going to be a defender down. So what happens next from an income perspective is going to be interesting, because Liverpool can't go into next season with just 3 fit centre-backs. We've seen how much it's affected Manchester City not having, you've top centre-backs fit and firing for the full season. So for me, Liverpool will need another one, but Lovren looks like he's on his way, and good luck to him. I mean, he's fallen well down the pecking order, hasn't he, behind Matip and Gomez and Van Dijk, and amongst some, we've talked about him loads of times, and I know Dan's got the Scouse heartbeat line ready for Lovren, but he's made nearly 200 appearances, and when he has played well, it just gets overlooked or it gets ignored. I think of Manchester City at home this season. He played in that game, and I think off the top of people's heads, a lot of people wouldn't know that. He's never been a fan favourite, but I think there's been a tendency to kind of magnify the errors, because when they have come, they've always been high profile and kind of glaring. So that kind of counted against him, but he's a very good centre half, and he will be a good player for the next few years with Zenit. We'll see him in the Champions League, no doubt, and looks like he'll probably finish his career in Russia. So good luck to him. I just hope that money that Liverpool are getting, it does kind of count as some sort of transfer budget, because we already know that's going to be stretched.
Yeah, you'd imagine it would do. Lovren, of course, will leave Liverpool as a Champions League and a Premier League winner, Dan, and a World Cup finalist as well. So, as Gorsty says, there has been a few lows, but the highs shouldn't be forgotten either. No,
absolutely. And I think there's one of the reasons I've got a lot of time for Lovren is that I think there's a parallel really between him and Jordan Henderson, in that they've both had difficult times at Liverpool, and have had to kind of overcome those setbacks and almost kind of prove themselves again and again to supporters, to their own teammates, to the managers. As Gorsty pointed out, he's only played 10 games this season, but he actually started 3 of those critical games in late October, early November that really, I think, were fundamental to really cementing Liverpool's position at the top of the table. The win at home to Tottenham, the win away at Villa, and the win over City. Another game that stands out in my mind that, again, his contribution is very much forgotten about. Just after Van Dijk signed, Liverpool beat City 4-3. January 2018, which was City's first defeat of the season, and I think was kind of like an important kind of staging post on Liverpool's kind of journey in terms of holding City back. Now, Lovren was captain that day, and with before the game, people concerned, City unbeaten, Van Dijk not playing, this could be a difficult afternoon for Liverpool. 4-3 was the scoreline. If you remember, City only scored 2 goals very late on. In actual fact, Liverpool dominated them that day by and large, and were fought and led handsomely for much of it. So I don't think he was. He came out with some comments a couple of years ago that he was one of the best centre backs in the world, and he's an emotional defender. I think he's played on that. I think some of his best games have come because of that. I don't think he was maybe ever quite as good as he thought he was, but he was never as bad as some of his worst critics says he was. And as far as I'm concerned, he's played an important role in Liverpool's rise back to the top, and he should be recognised and thanked as such for that.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more there, really. Sorry, Matt, just interrupted. I might just follow on from Dan's point. He took Liverpool to a Champions League final, played in Champions League final, and was probably one of Liverpool's best players that night. And I think that's also forgotten quite often as well, because obviously Liverpool lost. And then you think how he fought back from being dragged off at Tottenham, and his mentality in that team. Klopp talked about those mentality giants, and he is no doubt one of those. He's a really experienced head. He would have helped a lot of those youngsters coming through. He's obviously best friends with Mo. I think he gives a lot more to Liverpool than what the people give him credit for. But I think, to be honest, he's 31. As Gordy says, he's got a good few years ahead of him. He wants to play. He's not going to play at Liverpool. And, nearly £11 million is probably decent business all round. Lovren's going to go to a Champions League team. He's going to play football, and Liverpool are going to get a little bit of money. So I think he'll leave with everybody's best wishes, but he'll leave with my best wishes particularly,
Yeah, certainly. And just quickly, Connor, before we move on, do you think it does mean that Liverpool will have to bring in a centre-back? We've seen Fabinho play there before, but what do you think on that?
Well, I know they looked at Ben White, but Brighton have said he's not for sale. He's his parent club. He's been playing for Leeds, who obviously been promoted from the Championship. It's a really difficult call. You would hope so. You'd hope you'd think, Hover and Vandenberg probably aren't quite ready to step into number 4. And as we've seen, various teams without 4 centre-backs have struggled a bit. So you'd need someone with a bit of experience. You're probably not going to get somebody of Lovren's quality to come in as 4th choice, and that's the sad fact of it. But I think Liverpool do need another experienced centre-back there, just in case something happens. I don't think, with the way Fabinho started, especially after the restart in that defensive midfield position, he's been sensational. So why would you move him, really? I know he can play there, but you kind of think, get a 4th in. So you'd hope so. You'd hope this money will just go towards getting another centre-back in.
Yeah, you'd certainly think so. And Liverpool will have until October the 5th, I think it is, the transfer deadline. Before we take a quick look at the Chelsea match, the Premier League confirmed today that it will start the new season on September the 12th. Before we move on, Gorsty, presumably that means a 2 or 3 week break for the players after this weekend, and then straight back at it.
That's exactly it, yeah. Someone from the club was telling me yesterday, we've got 2 weeks off and then 3 weeks training. So the fact that they're already kind of pointing towards next season is kind of proof of the mentality. I mean, we know that they enjoy a celebration in their squad and fair play to them, but they are kind of already tentatively looking ahead to next season, which is probably a good thing, isn't it, when you think about it? Of course, they've got the Newcastle game on Sunday, but provided that they're professional, then they should come away from St James's Park with 99 points for the season, and then a couple of weeks off, a couple of deserved weeks. Can't really go on holiday, can they? So interesting. You might see Mohamed Salah up in the lakes or something like that. And then they're back to training. So short turnaround.
Yeah, very short turnaround. Manchester City, I suppose Liverpool will be keeping an eye on as well. If they got to the Champions League final, I think there'd be less than 3 weeks between that and the start of the new season. So certainly something to look at a little bit further down the line. We can cross that bridge when we come to it. But to turn to Chelsea next then, Naby Keita, I thought was very impressive indeed, Connor. A brilliant goal. We've been here plenty of times before suggesting that this might be the catalyst. It might be the moment that he ignites. Will it be?
I think the thing to note against Chelsea is it wasn't just a flash. It wasn't just a one moment. It wasn't just a one goal. I thought the whole performance for the whole 90 minutes, I thought he was excellent. I think he pretty much ran the show actually in midfield. So I think that's probably a bit of a difference to what we've seen from Keita before. We've seen him have these moments and these runs and these moves, but a whole complete performance, probably not too many. But actually, you think the last few games, I think it was unlucky not to start. I can't remember who he was against, but yeah, he's had a few decent overall performances. So we're back there, but I'm more confident now saying that I really think this is it. I think, he looked really a part of the squad during those trophy celebrations. I think he looks like a real member of this team. He has a role to play. He knows he has a specific job that nobody else can really do as well as him. So I think that will give him confidence. And I think, yeah, just to say, the complete performances we've been seeing him from recently, particularly against Chelsea, where he was outstanding, I think this could be the one where he just kicks on and hopefully just takes that straight into next season. And obviously there's not too much of a break in between as well, so it's not going to disrupt his rhythm too much either.
Yeah, you'd imagine that he'll start again at the weekend, and we'll come to our teams for that game at the end of the podcast. But Roberto Firmino, Dan, ended his goal drought. It was never a real issue that he hadn't scored at home, but I suppose it would have been a bit of a weight off his shoulders, given he'd not scored at Anfield in the Premier League for 15 months.
Yeah, I mean, it was a complete anomaly, really, because he has played a very significant part in Liverpool's season. He scored some very, very important goals away from home, some big winners. But he's never been a player, really, that could or should be defined by his goal record. He is the man, really, that, as we've talked about on a number of occasions, makes Liverpool tick. But at the end of the day, he's wearing number 9. He's a centre forward. He wants to score goals, and I think you could see, not just in his own reaction when he headed home at the Kop end on Wednesday night, but in the reaction of his teammates, how much it meant to all of them. And it was just a lovely little kind of postscript to, what in many ways was almost a perfect night for Liverpool. It was at the end of the day, it was always going to be a special night with the title being lifted. I think Graham Souness, I didn't actually hear it, but I heard people saying Graham Souness had said before the game, if Liverpool were to be beaten by Chelsea, they almost wouldn't feel like picking up the trophy, which I think is overstating it a little bit. But obviously, they've got this incredible home record. What is it? 3.5 years unbeaten at Anfield. Aside from the draw with Burnley a couple of weeks ago, this was the 18th win in 19 home league matches. So it was important to win it. And Bobby getting his long-awaited goal, I think, was just the icing on the cake.
Absolutely. And Gorsty, did that game really send a reminder almost to Chelsea of how far they are behind this Liverpool team? Because with all the sort of trophy celebrations and that sort of thing, the actual result almost has been a little bit forgotten.
I think so, yeah. I mean, I was saying on social media that Liverpool didn't even need to win, and he showed up and scored 5 against a team who were, third in the league and playing for the Champions League place. So it was great that Liverpool didn't kind of sign off on a bum note and really showed up and went through the gears, because it's been a little bit missing lately, hasn't it? But I think they wanted to make sure that that this season ended on a high note at Anfield, and as Dan mentions there, they've also got that home record that they're trying to protect. That dates back to the 23rd of April 2017, which predates Mohamed Salah and Andy Robertson, and that's incredible when you think of the success that they've helped bring to the club. So yeah, I thought it was important that the performance matched the main event on Wednesday night, and it was an incredible game. Really, it was one of those mad games you get towards the end of the season. Sometimes you see them in the League Cup, and goals were flying in left and right, and it could have been more. But yeah, it was an entertaining game to sign off, I thought.
Yeah, really good. And I suppose that brings us nicely onto Klopp's pre-Newcastle United press conference, where he admitted he wasn't particularly pleased with Frank Lampard's comments post-match. Lampard not happy with the free kick that Trent Alexander-Arnold struck home, probably fair enough. But then he called Jurgen Klopp and his backroom team arrogant. Gorsty, you were on the Zoom call to Jurgen Klopp earlier today, and he had a little bit of a bite back at that.
He did. I didn't expect that, to be honest, when he kind of said, he pretty much said, say what you want to me between minutes 0 and 90, and then we'll forget about it after the game, and that's great. And I love that kind of attitude, actually, because it happens throughout football, doesn't it? Probably 5-a-side, where you're calling your mate this, that, and the other, and then it's all forgotten at full time. But Klopp did say one thing he wasn't happy about was the fact that Lampard had a little second nibble at full time when he spoke to Sky, and of course emotions run high. Referee Andre Marin actually said to Mateo Kovacic, "You won the ball." So I don't know why he gave the free kick, but from the free kick, Liverpool got their second goal, and he straight from it. So maybe Lampard was a little bit annoyed about that, but it was interesting that Klopp did kind of open up a little bit there and say Frank's a young coach, but he needs to realise that having a little bite after the game is not okay. It was almost like, you were a great player, Frank, but you're new to this managing game, and these are the do's and don'ts if you want to be elite level. And I thought it was interesting that the way Klopp had a little bite there.
Lampard talking as well, Dan, about that sort of arrogance is a little bit rich, given that he was part of Jose Mourinho's best period as a manager too.
Well, quite. Ian Doyle wrote an excellent article, comment piece for the Echo site last night, basically saying, having spent as long at Stamford Bridge as Frank has as a player and a manager, he would be very well placed to recognise such a trait. I mean, I think, I've got to be honest, I didn't have an awful lot of time for Lampard as a player. I do remember his challenge on Xabi Alonso, not in terms of his ability, but his challenge on Xabi Alonso in New Year's Day 2005, and just the general way he carried himself. Since the end of his playing days, I've generally kind of quite liked the cut of his jib, to be honest. Before he went into management with Derby, I think the season we got to Kiev, he did a lot of punditry for BT Sport, and I always thought generally he kind of talked a lot of sense and came across fairly well. And I think by and large his first season at Chelsea has been impressive. You look like they've got a decent chance of winning, finishing top four, and obviously they're in the FA Cup final. Another point that Doyley made in his piece, and I think is absolutely kind of hits the nail on the head. The fact that these kind of things, that Liverpool and Klopp are now stirring these emotions in other managers, other clubs, our rivals, shows again that we're a threat, that we're in their heads a little bit. I don't know if we're going to get onto Pep Guardiola's comments about the Player of the Year later on, but the time you should be worried is when your big rivals are patronising you and patting you on the head and saying, "There, little Liverpool, we're not worried about you." They are at the moment. So, I didn't see the press conference today, but I've been catching up with stuff, and I was quite pleased to see that Klopp, kind of like faced Lampard's comments down, because I think we can expect a little bit more of this going forward, because Liverpool now are up there to be shot at.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Klopp actually said, didn't he, in his press conference today, that teams are a little bit worried about playing Liverpool now. He knows they're a little bit worried, and you can tell that. It's obvious.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned Pep Guardiola. We will come to him shortly in those comments, but we'll just finish off, Connor, on the press conference today. Jurgen Klopp also had a thing or two to say about VAR in the Premier League. Some interesting comments, I thought. Yeah,
he's not particularly happy with it in its current state, and he was saying that they need to see themselves as a team and one unit, a bit more cohesion. He's not happy with particularly the way it works in England, I think. And I think that probably goes to the fact the referee on the pitch pretty much gets overruled by VAR. And, he's quite right in saying that. That's what it seems to be every time. They're not allowed to look at the on-screen pitch monitors and things like that. So be very interesting to see what comes out of this shareholders meeting about the VAR and what happens with it next season. Klopp not happy with the way it's going. And I don't think you'll find any manager in the Premier League is particularly happy with the way it's been done this season, really. But I don't think that it should be Stockley Park having this all-seeing, almighty control on what they say goes. And obviously the referees, and Klopp mentioned this himself, the referees on the pitch have a lot to do. And any help they get is welcome help, and it will help, but it needs to be a bit more cohesive.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's important that it was Jurgen Klopp saying that. Of course, Liverpool so far in front. It's not an excuse. It's a genuine sort of comment from him as well. But we will move on then to Jordan Henderson. We've mentioned him a couple of times in the podcast already. He's obviously won today the Football Writers Association Player of the Year Award. The criteria for the award takes into consideration the player who leads by example. Certainly, Jordan Henderson has done that. But he's also, of course, an excellent footballer.
Yeah, fantastic season of his life. I've mentioned this about Henderson before on the podcast. Perceptions are hard to change in football, and I think he picked up a reputation which is probably about 9 years old now from when he joined Liverpool, and people thought he couldn't cut the mustard at such a big club and he wasn't really up to it. And sometimes that sticks, even though he's gone on to, I don't know what other player could have his honour list and his achievements and still get looked at by anyone who follows football as some bluffer who's not a player. Premier League winning captain, England international, however many caps he's got, Champions League winning captain, Super Cup, UEFA Club World Cup, first ever in Liverpool's history. He's almost done a lot as a footballer, and still you're having people who don't think that he's a great footballer. He's a fantastic footballer, and he's absolutely perfect for this Jurgen Klopp midfield. That you need such a specific requirements in terms of ability and what you can do. Is he as good a footballer as Kevin De Bruyne? No. Sadio Mane? No. Van Dijk? No. But does that mean that the greatest player has always won won this award. No, it doesn't at all. I think he deserves everything that he gets. He's been fantastic this season, and he'd prefer the accolades, the individual awards, to go to Van Dijk or Mane. I know he would, but they've gone to him, and he should kind of revel in it while he can, because he's proven so many people wrong.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, followed in the footsteps of the likes of Ian Callaghan, Kenny Dalglish, Steven Gerrard, all Liverpool legends, Dan, who've won that award in the past. But Jordan Henderson is a Liverpool legend in his own right.
He is. And I think, as Gorsty says, he's reached that level within the Liverpool pantheon, but also, within the kind of the general football pantheon, why he's won this award. Because of his strength of character as much as his ability. He's obviously not without ability. He's got bags of it. He couldn't have the career, the games, the goals, the medals that he's got. But from the difficult early stages of his career, and even, I think back to the game in Munich last March, second leg of the last 16 of the Champions League. And I was there as a fan. And when I heard the news before the game that Fabinho had been left out and Henderson was starting, I remember us all looking at each other going, really? And I think I've mentioned this before, there had been a feeling where after Van Dijk came in that in some ways he was the captain without the armband. And Henderson's a very perceptive, shrewd individual. We've all observed that. And there's no way that he won't have gone on to that to some extent. And he's had to kind of almost reinvent himself, prove himself, right, at the time when he's the club captain and an experienced player. I think it takes incredible character and integrity to be able to deal with that. Now, as it turns out, in the Allianz Arena, he got injured in the first quarter of an hour, Henderson, and Fabinho came on. Obviously, Liverpool had a massive 3-1 win, which was a huge moment of that season, because I think it was round about that period in February, March, when they'd had 4 draws out of 6, and you just wondered, is the season starting to teeter a bit? And that was the moment that kind of like it got its second wind. And it was within, I think, a few weeks of that they had this well-documented chat between Henderson and the manager, Jurgen Klopp. And he started playing at times a little bit further forward. And that really, I think, gave him this renaissance to his career. He scored a vital goal at Southampton in that big win on the Friday night game. And really, the reason I think he's got this award is because he set the tone for Liverpool from the start of this season. We'd won the Champions League. We finished second with 97 points. Everyone wondered, can Liverpool really kick on? Have they hit their Everest? Are they going to start to decline now? And obviously not just Henderson on his own. Ultimately the manager sets the tone and the captain makes sure that that's carried out. But it's as much for his character as his ability, I think. But it's an entirely fitting choice, and I'm genuinely delighted for him.
Yeah, Henderson beat Kevin De Bruyne, who came second, Marcus Rashford, who was third, Alisson, Van Dijk and Sadio Mane also among those Reds players to get a vote. One person actually voted for Aaron Wan-Bissaka. I'd love to know who that was. But Connor,
didn't he?
Mrs. Wan-Bissaka, I
think. But certainly, Connor, Jordan Henderson, very, very deserving.
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, you could talk about Henderson's quality on the pitch until you're blue in the face. The exacting standards he drives from everybody around him, what he gives to the team, what he brings to the dressing room, what he actually he has driven Liverpool's seasons for the last season and a half comfortably. And then you've got to consider as well, off the pitch, all of the noises around the lockdown when all the players came together to do the Players Fund, or who was leading that is Jordan Henderson. It's just so much to take into account. And I didn't really think you could look past him, because the award isn't just simply about who can put in the best cross or who is the quickest or who is this and that on the pitch. It's just everything about the rounded player. And I don't think you could really fault Henderson for anything that he's done this season at all.
Yeah, absolutely a brilliant season. We expect the PFA version of the award to be revealed soon. Pep Guardiola, though, as we alluded to a little bit earlier, was not in the best mood this morning as he aimed another dig at Liverpool, this time about those PFA awards. Paul, Pep seems to be a little bit unhappy that Liverpool players keep winning awards, but is he right to be?
Can I jump in and say one thing here? Raheem Sterling won this award last year. Fact.
There you go.
He's wrong. It cannot be right, because Raheem Sterling won it last year. It's ridiculous. But again, it goes back to that point, isn't it? They're so worried. They've got such a bee in their bonnet about Liverpool, and it's so good to hear.
Rent-free, isn't it? We're rent-free in their heads.
He's very clever with it, Pep, because when he's when he's speaking, he's very passive aggressive and sarcastic, and those tones are difficult to convey written down. So you read these quotes, and you question him. He could say, "Well, I'm just being, it's a fact." Because I think what he said is, "These awards are for Liverpool," and so basically what he means is when they were Centurions, the award went to Salah, didn't it? But Salah had scored 32 goals, record-breaking Premier League season. No one's ever scored that in the Premier League season. The season after, Van Dijk won ahead of De Bruyne, and City won the title, but they only won it by a point. So it's 6 of one and half a dozen of the other, isn't it? And I don't think there's anything untoward in it. I think that's just how the votes have gone. I mean, if Kevin De Bruyne would have won the FWA accolade today, I don't think any of us would have too many complaints, and we'd probably say, yeah, fair play, he's had a great season. I think it's just one of them things. I think Guardiola seems to be getting more and more tetchy and wound up by Liverpool, and the fact that Liverpool are there at the moment. Liverpool are stopping him winning the Premier League, which I think I've said it for a while. Football fans should be absolutely rejoicing that this Liverpool team are around, because if not, then Manchester City are going to walk everything for the next 10 years. So maybe he's just annoyed that he's got a very genuine rival who have shown them this season that they're better than them.
Yeah, the Football Writers Award tends to be more about the story, and obviously in the criteria it's specifically mentioned about the off-the-field things. That's when Connor says about Raheem Sterling winning it last year, that was the exact same reason. But Dan, I suppose, unless Pep Guardiola is wrong here, he could end up being made to look a fool, really, because Kevin De Bruyne could still win the PFA Player of the Year award this season. And if he does that, then suddenly he looks very silly indeed.
Or even sillier than he already does. I mean, again, as I mentioned, I'm catching up with stuff, but even Gary Lineker, who has no axe to grind, no affiliation or attachment to Liverpool at all, even he's called Guardiola out for the absolute nonsense that he's been saying. Because these awards, whether it's the PFA or the Football Writers, are basically either, to quote him directly, either hundreds of journalists or hundreds of footballers, each casting a single vote of their preferred choice. To suggest otherwise is silly. Now, as I'd agree with Gorsty. If De Bruyne was to get the PFA, I would have absolutely no issue with it whatsoever. He's one of the best footballers I've ever seen. He's an absolute joy to watch. But also, what is satisfying at the moment is seeing just how wound up and how much Liverpool are getting to the likes of Guardiola. And I think a lot of it comes down to two things: the way Liverpool have gone about their business and the way City have gone about their business. And, obviously, as Liverpool supporters, journalists, we have our own view on it. But the fact that Guardiola's kind of feelings on it are so pronounced make it clear that the general football populace has a view of how City have gone about it and how Liverpool have gone about it. We're not going to get into FFP, but there's no, that is the reality of it. So, if De Bruyne wins it, good luck to him. But Jordan Henderson deserves it. And, I think really Pep Guardiola needs to kind of concentrate on getting his own house in order and rebuilding his team, because, as Echo columnist John Aldridge just said on a number of occasions this season, Liverpool have made a mockery of the league this season against the Manchester City team, who have vastly outspent them. And I think a lot of what Guardiola's come out with are kind of old-style Mourinho deflection tactics.
I think it's interesting you say there that Guardiola needs to rebuild, obviously, when he spent well over 100 million last summer anyway, and it hasn't really come off. But I fully expect City to plunder into the transfer market and go big again, because, well, recent weeks haven't been particularly kind to City, have they? The FFP views from everybody else other than City is that they have done wrongdoing, even though they may not have done. And then, obviously, being knocked out of the FA Cup. And if they get knocked out of the Champions League, they've won the League Cup this season, and that is, for a team that spent all that money, for a team that's supposed to be the best ever, that's no real great season to look back on, is it? So it's very interesting, and I think it will definitely have an effect this summer. It can't not. You've already seen what Chelsea are doing. I think City, they're going to follow City. They're the only two teams that we discussed that can probably do it, and I fully expect them to.
Yeah, it's not the first time that Pep Guardiola's got a little bit annoyed by Liverpool, Paul. And I suppose it begs the question, will Jurgen Klopp ever get drawn in? We've seen, Ferguson and Wenger going at it, but I mean, Jurgen Klopp is a very emotional manager, but maybe not in the same way that Guardiola is. And I think it would be a little bit of a surprise for me if he ever snapped back and we saw this more and more frequently.
Yeah, the two very different characters, aren't they? And the kind of pen picture of either of them is that Guardiola is very intense, and if he had any hair to pull out, he'd be pulling it out on the sidelines, even if they're 3-0 up in a game. And Klopp is the one who's laughing through games and cheering on his boys and playing the happy-go-lucky stuff. And that is kind of how it's been the last few years. But there is a little bit of there's a respectful rivalry there between two clubs. It's not between the two clubs, the two managers. But we did see earlier this season, that there was a little bit of needle between both. And then it didn't last long. I think it lasted in the build-up to the game that week. Was it Sadio Mane was accused of diving, and then there was a little bit of that, and it came and went quite quickly, but it was there for a little bit, yeah.
Has your dog got a squeaky toy, Gorsty?
Yeah, it's me 3 months puppy in the garden squeezing his toy, so never work with kids and animals, and I'm working with one of them here, apparently.
It's still celebrating Liverpool's Premier League title win in the background there, but
he's giving up now. Well, actually, I've got to say this. I was interviewing Trent Alexander-Arnold on Sunday, and he spent the entire 20 minutes while I was chatting to him trying to bite my toes. So that was a
Trent or the dog?
Yeah, before we move on then, just a last question on Pep Guardiola. Dan, if Liverpool and Manchester City are going head-to-head next season, is it almost a good thing if they sort of bite each other's heads off at every opportunity and we see these sorts of confrontations, or would you like for Liverpool to sort of stay out of it a little bit?
Well, it's certainly good for journalists if they go at it, because it provides ready headlines and ready copy, and people want to read them having a go at each other. In a footballing sense, I hope that there remains a healthy element of respect, because at the end of the day, I do think after maybe what you might say is a more conservative era in football with pragmatic managers like Mourinho holding sway for a while, Klopp and Guardiola's belief in expressive, progressive, expansive football ultimately is something that all lovers of the beautiful game would appreciate. There's no getting away from the fact that, however, whatever you think about how City have gone about their business, they have broadened the footballing horizon in the last decade. I always kind of felt a bit sorry for them for years, having had to share a city with United and living under their jackboot for so many years, with United winning everything in sight and City half the time being 1 or 2 divisions below them. When Aguero scored that goal against QPR, I went bananas. I was genuinely thrilled and chuffed for them. Maybe that says something about the state of Liverpool at the time. I think we lost 1-0 at Swansea that day. Brendan Rodgers' last game there before he took charge. So, as a fan as well, you want a little bit of edge, you want a little bit of needle. But I hope it doesn't get too nasty, because at the end of the day, particularly given the world, the circumstances we're all living in at the moment, football is something that's supposed to uplift people and make people feel good and be a source of positivity. So I hope, it's kept in perspective and a healthy element of respect remains.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see how that rivalry develops over the next few years. Actually, as we record this podcast, there is some suggestion that the PFA Player of the Year awards might not take place this year, so it'll be interesting to see what Pep Guardiola's thoughts are on that, given Kevin De Bruyne might not have the chance to pick that up. But we will move on. We mentioned Dejan Lovren earlier in the podcast, and Connor, Adam Lallana is another who will depart this summer. He had tears in his eyes at Anfield on Wednesday night as they celebrated that title win, and he's another one who's played a pretty key role under Jurgen Klopp.
Yeah, I thought he was unlucky not to get on against Chelsea for his final Anfield farewell, to be honest, especially when they brought on Minamino. But this is the way the cookie crumbles, isn't it? Really nice that Klopp lifted the trophy with him in front of all the cameras. He is another, and probably even more so, that will go out as one of a really great servant under Klopp. He's really well liked by the team. He's a real character in the dressing room. Gorsty did a piece with Henderson about every player in the team, and Henderson was just so nice, as you'd expect it to be about Lallana, but particularly really about how much Lallana gives off the pitch and how much credit Adam Lallana actually deserves, despite what you might not have seen of him on the pitch. Although, to be fair, this season he has had a few important moments and a few flashes of brilliance, and he's one that goes out with absolute best wishes, and I think I can't really speak highly enough high praise of him, really.
Yeah, certainly have plenty of highlights, Gorsty, for Adam Lallana in his time at Liverpool. And, Connor mentions the interview that you did with Jordan Henderson, and some of the nicest quotes in there, as he says, were about one of his close friends and one of that sort of leadership group that Liverpool have at the moment. That's going to be broken up this summer.
Yeah. He spoke the most about Lallana, actually, which, considering his role in the team this season, you might not expect, but the fact that they are very close friends on and off the pitch, aren't they? That kind of made sense. And it was a nice little tribute, actually, to someone who's departing. And he did say whoever he signed for this season are getting themselves a top player. So good luck to Lallana. I always thought he was a good player. He was a very good player at kind of adapting to Jurgen Klopp's new approach when he first came into the team, and was one of the leaders of the press as it goes. Still a very good player.
Bit unlucky with injuries.
Yeah, a couple of injuries have kind of affected him badly, and Henderson alluded to that, and he said, how difficult it is to kind of get back in the team, and how disappointing it is when you're flying and then you have an injury. But hopefully he does sign for someone who he can play regularly for, because I like watching him. He's very good on the ball, and good luck to him.
Yeah, it'll be very interesting to see where he ends up. We still don't know at this stage. And I wonder whether Adam Lallana might get his final few minutes against Newcastle at the weekend. You'd imagine that he might, given that he didn't come on Wednesday. Steve Bruce actually said this morning he'd quite like it if Liverpool had been partying for 3 nights heading into this match. But Dan, I suppose Jurgen Klopp and Liverpool will want to finish on a high, and as much as there might be 1 or 2 farewells, they'll want to reach that 99-point mark.
They will. It would certainly be a Premier League record after 97 last season, wouldn't it? I don't know if kind of like pro rata it would be an all-time club record. They'll want to go and win.
It would be an all-time Liverpool record, yeah.
It would be, yeah. I would very much imagine so. Well, yeah, and no one would pretend that certainly since the title was clinched, 4 or 5 weeks ago, it feels like 4 or 5 years ago now, that obviously some of the results and performances have wavered a little bit. I think we almost saw a return to form, and almost like even the start of what they're looking to do next season. It's almost like they've got it out of the system now. Now they've actually had this long hiatus between winning the league and actually getting their hands on the trophy. They've got the kind of business heads on. So yeah, I agree. I hope Lallana gets a game out. Lovren gets a run out on Sunday at St James's Park as well. Maybe we might get another look at Curtis Jones and Nico Williams. But Liverpool will want to go and win, get 99 points, and put down a marker to everybody else that, yeah, we've won the league, we've won it in style, and watch us go next season, because we're not standing still. And no one's made too much of it, and probably rightly so, because at the end of the day, they're not even really on Liverpool's radar at the moment. But Liverpool have now... When Liverpool last won the league in 1990, they led Manchester United by 18-7 in leagues. Obviously, and until a few weeks ago, it was 2018. Now Liverpool have reduced that gap to 1. If Liverpool win the league next season, they will be level. So that's another little factor which I think will be maybe in some supporters' minds, probably not in Jurgen Klopp's mind. But we'll all be looking and hoping for 3 points on Sunday.
Yeah, it's been a fantastic season. It'd be nice to finish it with the 3 points. Just before we come to picking our teams for the final time this season in just a second, Gorsty, do you expect a few youngsters to be given a chance? Maybe Lovren or Lallana might be given a farewell, or will Jurgen Klopp just go strong?
I think he'll go as strong as possible, actually. I think they will want to kind of supersede the points tally of last season. It'd be strange if Liverpool won the league this season with a point less, considering that they've absolutely walked home this season, a point less than what they got last season. So I think he'll stay fairly strong. I think the chance for Lallana is probably gone with it not being in Anfield, and he'll be wary of not getting injured for his next contract. Lovren, I don't really see him being involved either, unless it's off the bench for an injury or whatever. So, and there's my neighbour next door with his power drill, so it's gone well this podcast, isn't it? Yeah, I think it'll be fairly strong again, and Liverpool will look to finish on 99. They couldn't just quite grab the 100, but 99 doesn't sound too much worse, does it?
No, whatever happens, it will have been a fantastic season. We'll come on to our team selector for the game at St James's Park then, just before we finish. And Connor, we'll come to you first. Talk us through your goalkeeper, presumably Alisson Becker, and then your back four as well.
Yeah, no question. Alisson is in goal. Although I know if Theo was here, he'd be chomping and pining for an Andy Lonergan appearance. It'd be interesting to see. If Liverpool are 4-0 up and he's on the bench, I don't know. You never know. But we'll see. Addison might want that golden glove. Although it's probably gone, isn't it, actually, isn't it? So anyway, Addison in goal. We'll start there. From the team that I'd want to see, the team that I want to see is really strong. So the team that I want to see is Trent, it's Robertson, it's Gomez, it's Van Dijk, the team I think he's going to pick. I have a sneaking suspicion that Van Dijk's going to be rested and Lovren's going to play with Gomez. But that's just me.
Interesting. Your thoughts on that, Dan?
It's a possibility, but I suppose the same principle that Gorsty mentioned there in terms of his proposed move. God forbid he goes over on his ankle, and it all goes off. So yeah, listen, I've always been a big fan of Dejan Lovren. I'd love to see him soaring at the far post, to plant a header into the net to finish his career with a goal similar to his Dortmund header, which will forever be one of my absolute top drawer of Liverpool memories. But I would be surprised. I think it'll be the regular back four.
Yeah, I completely agree. And Gorsty, are you with us there?
I am, yeah. Full house.
Yeah, so I think the common consensus there among us, Alisson in goal, Trent, Gomez, Van Dijk and Robertson. In midfield, plenty of options. I'm going to go with Fabinho as the number 6, Gini Wijnaldum and Naby Keita alongside him. I think Naby Keita simply has to retain his spot after his performance against Chelsea. Dan, we'll come to you first on this one. Your midfield.
Hard to argue with that. I think, Fabinho has been, I think along with Naby Keita, both of them have probably had as successful a post-lockdown quarter of the season, whatever it is, as anybody in the Liverpool squad. I think that if you were doing like almost little reports on each player, those two would be right at the top. So yeah, I'll go with those two. I'm going to throw Curtis Jones in, give Ginny a rest, hopefully persuade him to sign that new contract, because I personally think a new deal for the Dutchman could and should be one of the most important deals that Liverpool strike this summer. That's
certainly. Yeah, we certainly don't have time to go into that today. But Gorsty, your midfield 3 for the weekend?
Yeah, Keita has to start, doesn't he? I thought he was fantastic the other night. The game's outstanding player. Fabinho, as Dan says, it's hard to kind of overlook him and his performances of late. And then it's just a case of maybe Milner or Wijnaldum, either or. Probably Wijnaldum against his former club. Obviously plays in a different role to what he did at Newcastle, but probably give him the nod. Well, Milner against his former club as well, actually, isn't it? But yeah, Wijnaldum for me.
Yeah, I'll go with Curtis Jones with Keita and Fabinho. I don't feel like Newcastle have got the ultimate firepower team. They've obviously got St Maximin, who looks their biggest threat, and he's down the wings. I think in the middle of the park, you can probably get away with Fabinho holding and a bit of Curtis Jones arrogance and some Naby Keita attacking and just go at them. So yeah, that'd be my 3.
And I presume, Connor, the front 3 is just going to be the usual Salah, Mane and Firmino.
Naturally. Can't be anything else, can it?
And everyone's going to agree with that, I think.
Broke.
Salah screaming to score 5 and catch Vardy.
Yeah, that would certainly be some result. The final thing then, we'll move on to our match predictions. I'm going to go for 3-1 to Liverpool. I think both teams will score and it could be entertaining, but I'm backing the Reds to get over the line. Gorsty, you first on this one. What do you think it's going to be?
I can't see Newcastle scoring, if I'm honest. I don't think they've got, as Connor says, I don't think they've got too much in the way of firepower, so I think Liverpool will win 3-0.
And Dan?
4-1 Liverpool.
And we'll finish with Connor.
Yeah, 3-0. Just don't think they've got the firepower up front to get past that Reds defence.
Wins all round then for Liverpool, and we will see, of course, what happens. No matter the scoreline, it's been some season for Liverpool, that is for sure. That, though, is all we've got time for on today's Blood Red podcast. From Paul Gorst, Connor Dunn, Dan Kay, and myself, Matt Addison, thank you for listening, and it's goodbye for now.